it is, the most listened to radio show on the planet. And the other stations are tuned in too.
These are wonderful boys. God, I love the station.
Really good guest coming on tonight. Victor Vigiani will be joining me, and well, he is a research and analyst of anomalous aerial phenomena, and it spans his research spans something over 30 years. So we'll be talking with him tonight. And well, outside of that, opening lines at some point. If anybody wants to call in, the call in number will be 803-392-4566. Still working on that other line. Some options available here. Just wait. If we get through another full show without an issue, then I'll be ready to hook that one up too. But anyhow, so yeah, it's Monday night. We are live and we are ready to go. So we'll be talking with Victor in just a little bit. I'm looking forward to it as well. Cops issue warning over man dressed as Cookie Monster in California. That's right, a man dressed as the Cookie Monster. They dress up as all kinds of things in California, don't they? Really everywhere now. According to police, the life-sized Muppet has been spotted around Santa Cruz and is known to approach tourists and bombard them with angry conspiracy-laden rants. So, angry conspiracy rants. Okay. Hey, however, you got to get the truth out, I suppose. God bless you. Who am I to judge? It's not up to me, right? So, apparently, this guy was arrested before. He dressed up as Elmo and was in Times Square ranting about these conspiracy theories. Now, I wonder exactly what conspiracy theories they're talking about, because the media has a bad habit of calling, things that are now true. They still call them conspiracy theories. So, there we are. Hello, everybody. Now we're up on the screen. So, anyway, so watch out for the Cookie Monster if you should happen to go to Santa Cruz, California. He might yell some conspiracy theories at you. Intelligent hybrid super pigs. As if super soldiers was not enough, now you've got to worry about super pigs, hybrid super pigs. Well, I don't know. Maybe you have to worry about it. Maybe you don't. They say they're starting to invade the United States. It might sound, they say, like a plot off a movie, but these so-called super pigs are very much the real deal. They're pretty damn big, too. Larger and hardier than typical domestic pigs, these brainy, very smart, and highly resilient hogs were bred by Canadian farmers by combining domestic pigs and wild boars to create a hybrid species capable of withstanding the country's freezing winter temperatures. So they, just like when I think what was it, the rabbits they released in Australia, right? They said, "Oh, we'll release all these rabbits and it's going to help with this problem or that problem. And then there was nothing that naturally went after the rabbits. They multiplied, started destroying, crops and all kinds of stuff. Anyways, the idea worked, they say, perhaps too well, but when demand for the animals dropped around 20 years ago, some farmers chose to release the pigs into the wild. That's what they do, just release them in the wild. And now they're heading south into the United States, and they're proving extremely difficult to get rid of. Wild hogs feed on anything. They will eat anything. They gobble up tons and tons of goslings and ducklings in the spring. They could take down a white-tailed deer, even the adult deers. These things are like little trucks on feet. The downsides outweigh the benefit wild hogs may have as a huntable species, and they say as it stands, the pigs have made it to North Dakota, and over time, they are likely to multiply and spread across the mainland United States. So watch out for super pigs near you. Energy Department finds COVID-19 most likely emerged from lab leak. Yeah, well, it did. I mean, they could say leak. It was not a leak, but okay, we're getting somewhere, right? It's released from a lab, yeah. But this whole accidental leak, no, not quite. They knew what they were doing. They used it to, well, fix the election for amongst other things and really control. And look at how they brainwash people. It's amazing. So the Energy Department has now concluded with, well, they say here low confidence, but that's just the mainstream media for you, that the COVID-19 pandemic most likely began after an unintentional laboratory leak in China. Unintentional, my butt. According to the Wall Street Journal, which cited a classified intelligence report provided to the White House and members of Congress. Now, there are two competing theories about what started the COVID-19 pandemic in China. That the virus jumped from animals to humans, which, no, I doubt that. It was helped along, if anything, Fauci, at a market, they say. And that it was accidentally leaked from a lab where researchers were studying coronaviruses. Neither, they say, has had enough evidence so far to be conclusive. No, I think it's very conclusive. They just don't want to admit it like everything else. Regardless of where it came from, we know why. It was put out there and who put it out there. We're dying slowly, they say. East Palestine residents report bizarre health issues after toxic train derailment, and Biden, he couldn't stop there. He had to go to Ukraine where all his money's going. Yeah, that's where the gravy train is, apparently. Love my coffee during the show. So it's a tragedy there. Trump, he brought, I don't know how many tons of cases of water over there. And then, of course, the mainstream media says, oh, it was expired. It was not expired. It's unbelievable, the crap they put. I mean, if he saved the baby from a burning building, they'd say, I don't know, they'd blame him for something, probably the fire. San Francisco debates reparations for black people. So that's what it says. $5 million each. And they say, is that enough? Well, if I was black, I guess I'd go march down to San Francisco and collect my $5 million. It's another, it's just another way to divide. They want people to get mad and angry, and and I doubt that this would even go through, but or happen. But who knows? It may, and if it does, hell, I'd go down and collect my $5 million. Why not? Supreme say domestic spying too secret to be challenged in court. Domestic spying is too secret to be challenged in court, so they'll just keep doing it. Putin warned of more mystery rather attacks after Russian plane explosion. So Putin's getting a little ticked off over there. We'll see what comes of that too. I'm actually working on getting the lieutenant colonel back on. We're going to talk about this whole Russia China thing. AI learns to outsmart humans in video games and real life. Well, I don't doubt it because humans have been so badly dumbed down, it seems. At least a good majority of them. So I really wouldn't doubt that. So yeah, this AI, they had videos available. I was watching some of it. These things were learning how to beat you in these games. I mean, and of course, it could do things that you probably couldn't because hand-eye coordination compared to AI. That's like trying to beat Superman in a race. And finally here, zero-calorie sweetener. Oh, yes, Dr. Betty Martini has warned of this stuff for a long time. Well, this zero-calorie sweetener, you think you're doing good for yourself, and you're taking a 0 calorie. I'm not going to gain weight. It's now linked to heart attack and stroke. Study finds, and this is what Betty Martini, Dr. Betty Martini, has been saying since 2011. I've been talking to her, and she's been saying that and it causes tumors and all kinds of stuff. So now here it is. They say it's a sugar replacement used to add bulk or sweeten stevia. And they say, let's see here. It has been linked to blood clotting, stroke, heart attack, and death, according to a new study. It's called erythritol. So then there's aspartame, too. That's one that we've talked about many times. So, watch out if you're trying to avoid sugar and going for these. Look, if you're going to avoid sugar, just avoid it. You want something sweet, eat fruit. They say people with risk factors for heart disease, such as diabetes, were twice as likely to experience a heart attack or stroke if they had the highest levels of this sweetener in their blood, according to the study, which was published Monday in the journal Nature Medicine. So that's where you can find it. What else? So we got some. Okay, Chicago inmates claim that jail guards are pressuring them to illegally vote in the mayoral election. Look at that. They're being told that they're being asked to, they're being coaxed to vote. They want to keep that mayor in there. So these inmates claim guards at Cook County Jail were pushing them to illegally vote. Guards are allegedly getting orders from higher up and doing what they're told. It sparks fears of ballot harvesting because jail was an ideal environment for it. Well, yeah, election fraud's been going on for a long, long, long time. And it's gotten worse and it's gotten blatant. It's right in our face. They say it's also raised fears it may propel Lori Lightfoot back in office despite poor polling. Well, yeah, it would put her back in office because that's what they want. That's how they get these nitwit half-wits in office in the first place. They cheat to get them in there because nobody would, even a pea brain would vote for these people. They're worthless. So real quick before I take my break, I am planning on, let me see here, something different there. There we go. Okay, so I'm planning on doing something with this YouTube channel of mine. Yeah, they censor, right? Censored. You can't say this and you can't say that. But I do a lot of paranormal type stuff too on this show, a lot of guests in that nature. So I suppose if I wanted to use it to better promote these other outlets like Rumble and the website and these shows, other shows on the network, then that might be a good way to do it, right? So try to reach that audience over there that's kind of dormant, some of them. And so I'm thinking maybe I'm going to figure it out probably Sundays. Maybe I don't know if I want to do it every Sunday or every other Sunday, but maybe pick up another day for the last frequency and go ahead and pull one of those shows. Of course, it'd be a show just for YouTube, and it'd be a little different. I'd cut the news segment out, maybe cover one little thing here or there, but you got to play it safe over there if you're gonna walk on eggshells. But I thought maybe it'd be good to utilize it. It's just sitting there, and if they take it, they take it. It is what it is. But anyways, it's a thought right now. So I am going to take a break, and before I do that, let me also tell you social media. You can find me on Facebook. You can find me on Twitter. I am on both. I'm also on MeWe, and I am on Truth Social, Donald Trump's social media. So you can find me there. The main place is the mothership of all we do right there at the website, Last Frequency.
Come on, man. All men and women created by you know the thing. Lion, dog, face, pony, shoulder. I got hairy legs.
The search is over. You found us. You're listening to The Last Frequency.
Don't forget to hit the donate button on the way out. That will help The Last Frequency stay on the air. Just go to lastfrequency.com and send some good frequencies our way. Or take advantage of one of our subscription levels designed to help fund what is free for all. The Last Frequency Radio.
You're listening to the VARA Network. Hey, frequencies of all walks of life. Keep up with all things TLF Radio by joining our mailing list. Go to the bottom of the homepage and fill in the form. You'll get everything from guest info and show info and other important station-related information. So sign up now.
Frequencies around the world. Listen up. The shop is here, and you can order TLF Radio swag right now and show your friends and neighbors you're awake by wearing one of our many shirts, including our Let's Go Brandon shirt. That one is a hot seller, so get yours while supplies last. We have coffee mugs, clocks, so never miss your favorite shows, books, mouse pads. Just go to thelastfrequency.com and click the shop link. That's thelastfrequency.com and get to shopping.
Folks, when we look back in history, it's not hard to see the tragedies that come when the government meddles in a nation's food supply, when elections are rigged and more is done to control the people. What better way to control the people than through our food supply? With recent federal efforts to manipulate farming practices in America, all in the name of going green, you had better be ready. Be independent. Be smart. Get your family preparedness. They could eat. Get them My Patriot Supply. My Patriot Supply has a wide variety of different foods that taste great, and lasts for up to 25 years in storage. 25 years! So get your family prepared and click on the My Patriot Supply banner on our website at lastfrequency.com and have peace of mind that your family will survive whatever comes. My Patriot Supply.
The search is over. You found us. You're listening to The Last Frequency.
You're listening to the VARA Network.
Welcome to the night. From the Midlands of South Carolina, you're listening to The Last Frequency with your host, Mike Vara. To call into tonight's show, just dial 803-997-0936. To get questions directly to Mike Vara, you can call in or message Mike from the chat and listen page on our website, www.lastfrequency.com. Now, here is Mike Vara.
Easy, 53rd part. It's only going 8 blocks, but it was getting dark. Tried to play it safe, radio limousine. My night was looking great until my driver screamed. Alien, alien, alien. Landed, ooh, aliens are here. He said the Lord sent them on mistake. It was an accident, but an activation. Everything has its time and has its place. Told me might be driving out of outer space.
All right, we are back, and apparently the aliens have never left. We're going to talk to a really prominent guest here in just a moment, and about all that, and, well, so much more. All right. Oh, I got his bio here somewhere. He is, well, Victor Vigiani. And Victor's research and analyst of anomalous aerial phenomena spans over 30 years. His experience involves UFO sightings, report investigation, counseling, work with individuals reporting anomalous experiences, presentations, and journalism in the field of ETI disclosure issues. Yes, aliens. So, that's what we're going to talk about. I'll tell you, sometimes that train goes by, it sounds like it's going to go right through the house. Okay, let's see here. That's all right. Well, let's pull them on. How about we do that? I got a million things going here on this screen. He had a storm tonight. His power was knocked out. Now it's back, so hopefully everything works out well. And here we go. Excuse me. Good evening, Victor. No, not yet. Maybe now. Victor, welcome aboard.
Hello.
Hey, how you doing?
Not too bad. How are you keeping?
I am doing just fine, and we are live, and it's great to have you here on the last frequency. I'm looking forward to talking with you. I hope everything's okay over there. You sound like you had a one heck of a storm going through.
It was kind of scary there to begin with, for sure. But it's okay now. The white stuff is falling down still, but we're back. The power's back up, and we're alive and well. Thank goodness.
Oh, good, 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 good. Well, I thought maybe a good place to start. A little background. You've been doing this a while. How'd you get involved in all of this? And yeah, so kind of take us through quickly. Maybe how you got where you are now.
Well, it's a long story. You're right. I've been involved for, gee whiz, almost 45 years now. Um, I read initially when I first uh, was aware of this. I ran into a book by Jacques Vallée called Revelations. I was up at my cottage up north in northern Ontario, and I was just browsing in a bookstore, and I saw this book, and I picked it up and started paging through it. Before that, I really had no particular interest at all in the whole topic of UFOs or whatever you want to call them. And I began to page through the book. I said, this looks interesting. So I brought it home and I read the book during the summer up at the cottage. Being a teacher, I had 2 months off. So I actually read the book 3 times before I really understood what the heck was going on. And Jacques Vallée, as some of your listeners may know, is a very famous researcher in the field of UFOs and other things too. So that's how I started. And after that, several years following that, I got involved with MUFON Ontario here in Canada. And from there, I made a few contacts with a number of people through MUFON. And then I had the opportunity of co-hosting a radio program here in Toronto. It was called Strange Days Indeed, with the host Errol Bruce Knapp. And Errol was a very prominent figure within the UFO research community. And our program was syndicated to probably around 45 to 50 North American radio stations, and then eventually on the internet. And we interviewed everybody and just about worldwide that was involved in this whole issue. So I got to know a lot of people through the interview process and made connections that way. So essentially, that's how I got involved and how I've been remained involved for the last number of years.
All right, great. And folks, I want to remind you, if you want to watch, you can go over to Rumble. If you go on a video archive page on the website, lastfrequency.com, there's a link right there. It'll take you right over. And you can watch, or you can listen from the website. It's up to you. So I wanted to get your perspective on now what you say the current sad state of manipulated UAP disclosure, and when you manipulated, like, how badly?
Well, the problem when I use the word manipulate, I'm referring to um, how can I put it politely? It's rather unique because this topic is so bizarre, so strange, and you have to look at it from several perspectives. First of all, there's the perspective of, I guess, the common UFO researcher, the people who write the books, write the articles, have podcasts, and all of that kind of stuff. That's one perspective on this. And then there's the perspective of how the media, up until recently, has dealt with this issue and manipulated it. And then there's the aspect of the government. Okay, when I say the government, I'm using that as a very, very broad term. I don't mean government in terms of congressional leaders or members of parliament or anything like that, because those poor souls, by and large, know nothing about this UFO issue at all. So it's up to the military and the intelligence agencies and inside government officials to manipulate this particular topic in whatever way they see fit. And that is usually, it began with back as far back as 1947, by completely dismissing the issue and covering it up and using and orchestrating a huge cover up with it for almost 75 years now. So that's the kind of thing that's gone on over 7 or 8 decades. So it has been manipulated. It's been something that has been hidden, that's been sequestered and falsified, misinformation, you name it. Everything has been thrown at this issue to discredit the whole thing. First of all, of the concept of UFOs or UAP, whatever you want to call them, those kind of craft. And then on top of that, completely misdirect the idea that these craft uh, are not of Earth origin, of Earth origin, and that's the real bad part of this whole thing. That the craft, and it's been proven time after time after time, that these craft, most of them, um, are not from they're not of Earth origin. Is basically is it. So if you look at, let's say, 100 sightings of UFOs, our research tells us that about 95 or 98% of what's categorized as a UFO are in fact unidentified. We don't know what they are. Weather anomalies, missightings of aircraft, stars, planetary meteors, whatever you want to call them. 98% of those things fall into that category. But then there's that other 2 to 3 or 4% that we just cannot explain. And that's the category of information that we deal with. And so there's been a lot of misdirection and miscalculation about what these things really are. And as a result of all that, some of the really good researchers that have done all of the legwork, all the homework, have pretty much clarified for the rest of the human family that these craft, and they come and visit on a regular basis, are not of Earth origin. So that's what we're talking about in terms of the huge scale of manipulation that this whole UFO issue has undergone over the past 75 or 80 years.
And how much do you think the government, and I guess this would probably be speculation, but how much do you feel they do know about this?
Well, there's a the jury is out on that, and once again, it's at different levels of what you call knowing. Okay,
Yeah.
what I think we have to look at is when you once again when I say the government, we're looking at the deep black budget operations, the deepest levels of secrecy that you can ever imagine. Now, most of the time when you talk about the government and the intelligence agency, it's quite common to mention names like the FBI or the CIA or the NRO or the NSA, all of those alphabet organizations who run the American intelligence departments, and they're not the only ones. They are in the United States. They also have their counterparts in other countries. MI6 in the UK, and different kinds of secretive agencies within other countries, in France and Belgium and Europe, throughout Europe and Germany. So you look at those entities within their intelligence communities on the surface, and they have their own data on this stuff. They collect sighting reports. They know what the military encounters, but that's only one level of real secrecy. What you have to do is understand that this phenomenon, and the basic understanding of what this phenomenon really is, exists at the deepest and the darkest level of intelligence within, let's use the United States as an example. That's where it resides. And so you ask me, what does that deepest level know about it? I would say that they know a lot. They know a lot about what these things are, what their propulsion systems are, where they might come from, not including any
Okay, we're getting things back up here. It just never fails, does it? Or does it always fail? All right, let's get him back on here. Ooh, that was okay. No, no. That's ringing. He might think he's still on. Shoot. No. I thought it was going too good to be true. You there? Oh, there you
We
are.
dropped off. You dropped off. I'm
Yeah,
not quite sure.
yeah, we did. It was on my end. The sound went kapoop on me, so I had to reboot real quick. But hey,
Oh.
we're back, and so kind of left off where you were saying that these crafts might be not from Earth.
Mm-hmm. Well, the fact of the matter is that, and I don't know, maybe I'll repeat myself again, but
Okay.
if in an objective sense, if you look at let's say we look at 100 sightings. So there's 100 sightings that are made of objects that people see in the sky, uh, and all the research that we have, and it's been proven quite readily that 95 out of 100 sightings are misidentifications. They're either stars or meteorites or meteors or airplanes, balloons, whatever you have it. 95 out of 100, but five of those sightings, categorically and data-wise, are not of Earth origin. They are what we would call UFOs or unidentified aerial phenomena. We just cannot explain where they're from. And at that point, what we do know is that segments of the government and our researchers who've been involved in this for well over 70 years themselves, we can categorically prove that the propulsion systems that these craft had, that 5%, once again, have propulsion systems and maneuverability characteristics far beyond anything that we have. There's nothing that can compare to the speeds these things travel. They travel 15, 20,000 miles in our own atmosphere without burning up, without making a sonic boom, reversing courses, hovering, doing things, making right angle turns that if we did that in our own aircraft, the people on the inside would be crushed to death.
They'd be liquefied, yeah.
Exactly, yeah. So I mean that's the kind of thing that we're looking at. And when you asked about what the government knows, they know that the propulsion systems that these craft utilize are arcane. They just don't know what it is. Some people say it's anti-gravitic, electromagnetic, using free energy of some kind to manipulate airspace in front of them. All kinds of things that categorically prove that nothing on Earth, to this point, anyways, can replicate the kinds of maneuvers that these craft exhibit. They come and go with impunity. And the basic reason that this happens is because they've got energy systems at their disposal, whoever they are. We're talking now extraterrestrials. So it's a matter of finding out exactly, specifically what the government knows, and that's what we're in the process of doing right now.
And so, in these crafts, they seem to come in a different variety. It seems like,
Mm-hmm.
some seem to be solid, and then others seem to be some kind of, I don't know how to put it, like interdimensional. Just they seem like they're all energy, I guess, somewhat.
Well, yeah, and that points to the fact. I think you brought up a very good point. it points to to a couple of things. First of all, and let me try to sort of put this in several categories. The first category of what these things might be, it has you have to look at it from the point of view of the number, if in fact what's going on, the number of off-world civilizations that we're dealing with. Let's start at that point. And the assumption here is that the universe, the cosmos itself, is literally teeming with life. There's millions of stars out there and billions of planets out there. Not all of them, have the capability to move from point A to point B at or beyond the speed of light, or whatever that might be. So you've got the one aspect of moving from point A to point B in the cosmos within the universe, traveling at or beyond light speed to get here. Now those craft, however they're configured, are generally speaking sort of hard objects. If one were to land, you could probably knock on the door and say, "Hello, is anybody in there?" So you've got this kind of rock solid metallic kind of craft that might show up in our atmosphere. And this is what a lot of people are seeing. Okay, that's one category, which represents one level of intelligence of the people or the beings that actually operate these solid craft. And then you bring up that the other point is the energetic formulation of some of these crafts. Some of these craft exhibit almost like an amorphous characteristic. You can they're buzzing energy. There's no craft and no solid component to them. And it's really kind of bizarre. They just show up and they come in balls of light or whatever, and that's the way they exist. And they may in fact represent a different level of off-world civilizations at a different level of intelligence. And then you've got this other thing that you just mentioned, that they may be interdimensional. These things, some of them may in fact be able to move within dimensions and time. And that to me is something extremely complicated to wrap my mind around. But you can't rule out the possibilities of different levels of intelligence in different parts of the cosmos of beings that are at all different levels of existence. Some are a million years old, some are 10 million years old, some are 50 million. We just don't know. So each one of those categories of off-world civilizations represent different kinds of craft that may in fact be visiting us, not just now, but probably on Earth for hundreds and thousands of years. So to answer your question, they come in all forms and from places that we can't even imagine. Some people, they say, well, maybe it's an alternate universe, which is in fact true. Now the fact is, it really kind of important, is that if you can think it, it could be possible. So if these things are time travelers, that's one component of it. If these things are interdimensional, that's another component. Now, if you speak to some of the people who have experienced contact with these beings, the abductees that we talk to, or our contactees that we speak to, they have their kinds of references or descriptions of who these beings might be. Some of them are light beings, some of them are physical beings, beings that look like you and I. And there's all kinds of things that point to the fact that there is a number of different civilizations that are interacting with us. So, and that's part of the problem in understanding this, because it's not just one thing or just another. It's a multiplicity of things that are engaging us, both in a craft wise, craft basis, and with the beings that are actually housed in those craft in many different ways.
And so after all these years of sweeping this under the rug and making people look crazy to even talk about it, why all of a sudden are they coming out and saying, "Oh yeah, they're real and we've been interested in them"? What do you? I just don't trust them.
Well, neither do I. I trust them, but only so far.
Yeah.
Yeah. The thing, it's a really good question. Why has the secrecy lasted so long? It might be a good place to start. Initially, when this all first started, when quote unquote governments or the military became aware of this stuff back in the mid 40s, and maybe even before that. I mean, there's the one kind of bookmark in history is 1947, when the crash near Roswell, New Mexico happened, and the planes near Corona, New Mexico. That seems to be the benchmark of the first contact, but we know that things happened in 1942. But irrespective of all of that, that's when the government officials, mainly military at the time, began to realize that, holy smoke, we got something on our hands here that we have no clue what's going on. So what they did was, in order to kind of, you know, keep this stuff hidden, is they created the cover up because they just did not know what was going on. Some people had an idea as to what was going on. Some people who were there at the crash site, for example, in Corona, knew what was going on. They had a craft that they couldn't explain. So they covered it up. They just didn't know what to make of it. Beings, bodies, that didn't make any sense.
Yeah.
So if they started to use that kind of language in the general public, what would have happened would prove that the United States government, to begin with, if in the framework of just the American experience, would kind of indicate to the general public that the U.S. military had no control over over these craft. They could come and go with impunity, and for the United States Air Force or the military at the time to admit that they were not in charge of their own airspace, that would have been the death knell of any possible remnants of their capability, or to convince the American public that they knew what was going on, because that the war had just ended, and the United States had proven itself to be the superior military force throughout the world. They had the best air force, they had the best military on the ground and on the seas. They were number one in the books, and all of a sudden, one of these craft comes along, and pretty much to the chagrin of all these military officials, pretty much shoot that down. They had to admit, if they did go forward and talk about UFOs being real at the time and beings coming from another place, uh, that would have made them look far less superior than they thought they were. So that was one of the reasons why the cover up began in that way. They just could not wrap their minds around allowing the public to believe that the United States of America, who had just won the First and Second World War, and the power that they had, were a second-rate force compared to what these craft were. And then after that, in the early 50s, waves and waves of these things began to come forward, mostly because of the detonation of the atomic bomb back in the early 1950s. The idea that these craft began to come in so many great numbers, especially 1952. There's a huge wave, and if your audience wants to check that out, there's a huge UFO wave in 1952. And what the conclusion there was that these off-world civilizations had somehow figured out or noticed that the planet Earth now had atomic power, which in some ways each detonation sent out shock waves from the planet. Believe this or not, but this is the common scenario that's been told about it. And they didn't like that. These off-world civilizations did not appreciate the fact that the planet Earth had this kind of nuclear capability, and it disrupted everything that they knew to be proper. And it was something that was such a weaponized situation that they said, well, let's just see what these people are up to, and have a look at what the capabilities are in terms of these nuclear weapons. And would these nuclear weapons have the possibility of destroying this particular civilization, A? And B, if these people, if us, began to travel in space, would we take our nuclear weapons with us to be a threat in an off-world capacity? And they just wouldn't allow that. So they had to look see as to what the heck we were doing. And I'm not sure if your audience is familiar with a man named Jim Mars. He
Oh
wrote
yeah.
several books on this. And one of the reasons that he thinks these UFOs began coming in droves in the late 40s and 50s is these off-world civilizations said to themselves, "Oh my goodness, the kids have found the matches."
Yeah.
And if you can wrap your head around that one, which as it turns out, I've spoken to Jim. I've interviewed Jim before he passed away several times on the radio program that we had, and he was one of the most articulate and well-read and well-versed and one of the best researchers ever in all of this. And his perspectives were pristine, and they were very, very intellectually framed in a way that he could speak to the common man, but he could also speak at different levels of intelligibility with people. So he had a really good perspective on why these extraterrestrials were here, and just to have a look and see. So that's probably part of the reason why the government began to cover things up to the point where they just didn't know what was going on. And then after that, once they kind of got a sense as to what these things might have been, because pilots were seeing them, they were giving reports, commercial pilots were seeing these things, and they said, "My goodness, we just cannot um, talk about these things." So the United States Air Force went completely and totally silent on it with Project Blue Book, and just explaining every single sighting as weather balloons or weather anomalies or whatever you want to call them. But they would not admit that these craft were of substance with different kinds of propulsion systems that could outstrip any jet of the time or any other kind of propulsion that we had. So it was in their interest to keep silent about it. Not only keep silent, but create a wall or an embargo on the truth about what these things really were. And that perpetuated itself well to the end of the 20th century and now into the 21st century. Now that's changed a little bit. Maybe we can get onto that a little bit, but that's the whole framework of the context of the cover-up. There are a lot of other reasons for it too, but that those are the major ones.
And what would be the geopolitical implications to disclosure?
Opening things up, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, well, first of all, I'll go back to one of the things that I mentioned earlier,
Okay.
is that, in fact, if they did have complete disclosure, which I don't think we'll ever get, I'll put that in parentheses at this
I'm
point.
with you on that.
Yeah, what I call it would be acknowledgement. If the government, which it pretty much has right now, um, acknowledges these things now, as in 2017, and the article that came forward in the New York Times by Ralph Blumenthal and Leslie Kean and Helena Cooper, they got some pretty good information from inside the Pentagon, and the Pentagon had been conducting research through the ATIP program. Luis Elizondo was one of the people in charge of that at the time, and it was operating because of a grant that or funding that was obtained by Senator Harry Reid. He obtained $22 million to get the ATIP program going. That was sort of an investigative program within the Pentagon. And that $22 million went a long way to uncovering some of the things that the Pentagon really knew about what was going on. And that program was discovered by Ralph Blumenthal and Leslie Kean and Helena Cooper, and they wrote about it. And how Harry Reid and his two other compatriots got the money, we don't know. But in fact, they wanted to find out what the Pentagon knew about it. And as of 2017, a lot of information is just the floodgates opened, and all of this kind of I'm not going to say disclosure yet, acknowledgement that the American government was in fact investigating in a very deep way that had never been discovered before, had never been articulated before. They were studying UFOs in a way that no one ever thought that they would, in the context of this huge cover-up. And they were always saying there was nothing to this. There is no such thing as these things. They were just, weather anomaly. But then again, the Pentagon's the truth really came out within the Pentagon, realizing that there were these craft of unknown origin. They didn't know where they were from, and they had no answer. So what they did was say, well, you know what? These things are, they are anomalies. They could be China. They could be Russian technology. All the answers began to come forward, other than the off-world explanation. So that kind of acknowledgement was that these things were really for sure, tangible craft that people could actually see, that pilots were seeing. And then once again, you got these the videos from the United States Air Force pilots, the Tic Tac videos that Luis Elizondo brought forward, and these really began to give an indication that these craft were really bizarre. And some of the characteristics coming out were actually, they proved what everybody knew at the time within the Pentagon. These craft were hovering above the water, 50 feet above the water, hovering.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, within less than a second, they were at 85,000 feet. Within the blink of an eye, in less than a second. And this happened time after time after time. And then it came out that these pilots not only saw these things once in a while, but there are pilots who have actually gone on the record and saying this happens every day. So that kind of information was I don't really want to call it disclosure. I want to call it acknowledgement. The government acknowledged that this stuff was happening. Now, they didn't give an explanation about it, but they acknowledged this stuff was happening. So that began in 2017 and really opened the floodgates to have more and more kinds of interventions by the intelligence agencies and other congressional, I guess, bodies to look more deeply at it. So that's where we're at right now as a
Yeah.
result of what happened in 2017. So the geopolitical implications in the long term, and when you talk about geopolitics, that kind of means that in a way that if we do achieve any kind of quote unquote disclosure, it will mean that in some way or shape or form that other governments have actually found out the same thing. And we tend to be very myopic about this in the sense that the United States government sort of has a handle on everything, which in fact they've got a handle on a lot of this stuff, and they want to appear to be sort of quote unquote in charge of this issue, which they're not really.
No.
Other governments have just as much information, and some governments may even have more. We're not quite sure. We know the French has. The French government has a lots of information about this. We know the UK government has a lot of information about. We know Russia has a lot of information about this. So it's a geopolitical thing that once this thing called acknowledgement becomes total disclosure, that the whole global family will know what's going on, and that's probably the biggest geopolitical implication of it. And then after that, the questions geopolitically become, well, who are they? Where are they from? How many species are we dealing with? What are the energy sources that are using? Are they a threat to us? And all of the questions that anyone would want to conjure up in terms of trying to deal with the fact that we are in fact being engaged by off-world civilizations. And that's you take that from the lowest level of understanding
Yeah.
of people that in the poorest countries on the planet to the highest level of sophistication and military intelligence. They're all going to ask the same questions. And then comes the question of, have we had contact with them before? As I said earlier, with the story about President Eisenhower meeting with them at Muroc Air Force Base. We don't know if that happened. There's a lot of information that some researchers have gotten about it. We can talk about that at length if you want, but we just don't know that for a fact. But the fact of the matter is, we know that the government realizes these things are not from this planet and that they have to protect that kind of entity under the guise of national security.
Well, yeah, and it's yeah. I kind of wonder why. If they didn't want us to know anything, if they wanted to be secretive,
Hmm.
obviously, I don't see how they couldn't do it. Right? I mean, they could move faster than a speeding bullet, if you will.
Right.
So, but they seem to, all the information we do get on them, they almost give us. It's like they'll play with people. They'll hover up there. They know that they
Yeah.
got to know they're being seen.
Hmm.
So you got to wonder what is the end game with these guys? What's it all about?
What's their agenda, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, once again, I don't like to repeat myself, but when we look at the whole issue as a whole, we often look at it from too much of a from too close of an angle. We have to step back and look at it and deal with some of the intrinsic things that are going on. When we say what's their agenda, my emphasis would not be on the word agenda. My emphasis would be on the there. Who are they?
Yeah.
So if it's one, let's just take for example, if it's just one species, let's just say, just for argument's sake, if it's just one species, just one group of extraterrestrials from some far different planet, that's one thing. Okay, so it would be if that was the case, it would be much easier to ascribe any kind of agenda to that one species.
Yeah.
Why are you here? What do you look like? What do you have for dinner? Do you have cars? Do you date? Do you go bowling? All of that stuff that's very, very, pedantic. How did you get here?
Yeah.
Yeah, if it's just one species, that would be pretty easy to kind of deal with in terms of how the human family would want to attempt to understand what's going on. So, do you understand that? That's one
Oh
perspective.
yeah.
But then,
Yeah.
if you introduce the other perspective of a multiple number of extraterrestrial civilizations, then enters the question of, okay, fine, let's just suppose, for argument's sake, there's 150. Okay, I'll just pick a number off the top of my head. If there's 150 different species that are out there that have made some sort of overtures, then you have to get into the argument: are they operating independently as each an individual civilizations of, they're coming here all by themselves and doing their own thing, okay? Or are they engaging the planet in a cooperative way? Are they together in this? Are they a federated group? Do they know what each other is doing in order to come here and say, okay, here, there's this planet Earth here. You visit them and we'll visit them, and we'll just sort of do our things together and not make ourselves known in the way they think we should. So there's that aspect too. So then the idea of an agenda becomes a little bit more important as to what they're up to. Okay, and and then there's the third aspect of it is, do they really care about this planet? Is something that there's a deep interest in? They may just walk by us and visit us like we'd walk by an anthill and look at it and keep on going.
I was thinking that same thing. The
Yeah.
ants would look up and say, "Oh, they've been here for thousands of years."
Hmm. Yeah, exactly, precisely. So there's so many different ways of looking at this that it almost, when you look at it from the point of view of someone, as I spoke to earlier, who knows nothing about this issue, or has heard about it, but he really has no interest in it, does not realize the deep implications of it. For someone who really is not acquainted with this whole issue, these things mean very little to them. And that's okay. I understand that, because everybody's got to, they mow their lawn, they go grocery shopping, they have their jobs, putting food on the table, and this kind of stuff really doesn't bother them one way or another. And if you look at what the implications are, and if these things are in fact what we think they are, then we've got a lot of questions that rise to the surface. My big issue with all of this, probably is the number one issue, is the whole energy issue. What kind, if they're moving from point A to point B, from whatever planets they're from, star systems, they're using a form of propulsion. Let's just say it's A to B propulsion, antigravitic or whatever you want to call it. And if that is the case, these craft and their civilizations represent a source of energy that the planet Earth could very well use to resolve the climate and energy situation that we're in right now. All indications are that whatever this energy source is A, it's free. B is totally abundant in the cosmos. They draw the energy from what's called the quantum vacuum of space. It's called zero point energy, and this is how they propel their craft. How it works, who knows? But this is the predominant theory about how some of these metallic craft actually function. So from that point of view, if the global family begins to understand, or gets to understand, that this energy source could in fact resolve a lot of the issues with respect to our energy problems here on the planet, that's a big deal. That is a huge deal. So another reason why it's kept secret, well, if in fact these things are acknowledged and disclosure does happen, and if it does become common knowledge that these craft have this incredibly arcane and different and unique source of energy, my question is, and everybody's question is, what does this do to the oil industry? And how many billions of dollars will remain hidden in the ground, inaccessible, and not be able to be used, or not even wanted to be used, because we've got this new form of energy, if we're ever informed about what this energy is. So there's a lot at stake if UFOs are disclosed and the energy source becomes common knowledge. And if you're a Shell executive or an Exxon executive, you're shaking in your boots right now, because this energy, if it's shared with us in the right way, which some of these extraterrestrials seem to want to do, according to the contactees, the oil industry would fall overnight. Now, what happens geopolitically with that? What happens economically with that? What happens to all of the other kinds of things that we do on a day-to-day basis that endanger the climate on this planet? That all has to be reckoned with. So that's another reason why things are being kept secret. But it's another reason why we just have to bring it out into the open. And that's what part of my job is.
Well, I had read where they have, I guess, finally, I wouldn't say mastered, but they are now familiar with cold fusion,
Yeah.
and they're just figuring out, I guess, a way to do this or that. But I wonder if maybe they didn't learn something.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, there's the cold fusion thing that just come onto the horizon recently, and 60 Minutes, I think about 2 or 3 weeks ago, had an excellent um, portrayal of it on one of their programs. And the thing about cold fusion is that uh, there two things happen. You will get out more energy than you put in. That's the basis of it. If you inject with a laser or whatever it happens to be energy into this cold fusion process, the amount of energy that you get out of it will be, a hundredfold more than what you put in. But the problem with that is creating the substance that you inject, or that you inject your source into, and it's so difficult to create this substance. They talk about 9,000 units of this thing having to be created every second in order for this cold fusion to work properly. And the multiplication numbers are just astronomical, that we just, at this point in time, we do not know how to produce the substance that's required to create this cold fusion. So we're at a point now where, I guess, you know, when they first discovered fire, okay,
Yeah.
well, how much wood do we really need in order to get this heat?
Yeah.
So it's that kind of argument. We're at a very, very elemental level about the development of cold fusion. Now, the other aspect of this, and I've mentioned it a little earlier, is this whole idea of anti-gravity technologies. And here is where the argument and the discussion, or the narrative, whatever you want to call it, revolves around what we call the TR3B craft that people are seeing, these big black triangles. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm sure your listeners
I've
have seen
seen
that.
one of those. Yeah.
You have? Well,
I
there
have.
you go. Well, I've had it reported to me in many different ways. So that's great that you've seen one, because what they seem to be showing us is that these craft have been in secret developed by the U.S. military. Uh, Once again, like the SR-71 way back in the 50s was something that no one knew about, and it would be flying in the sky, and people foretook it by as a UFO. I mean, they made that mistake back then.
Yeah.
The SR-71 is an ox cart compared to what these TR-3Bs are. These things use some sort of system of propulsion that there's mercury involved, and spinning, whatever it happens to be, but they create some sort of anti-gravitic force field around which these craft can operate and cancel out gravity, so they're able to fly at very, very low speeds.
And they could
Very, very,
cloak.
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they could blend right into the sky behind them. You wouldn't even know they were there.
Exactly. So you have to wonder, A, where did the technology come from? How long have they been developing it, or working on it? And is it a transitional technology that's been learned by the reverse engineering of UFO craft that we kind of understand, but have been experimenting with? And all of a sudden you get these TR-3Bs coming onto the forefront, and they represent a corner of the technology that we need to find out about. So there's a direct correlation between the energy systems that these TR-3Bs use and some of the UFOs that we see. They're very, very similar in characteristics. So
And
there's it's like herding cats. You can't get them all together in a room to kind of decide exactly where you're at with the discussion.
well, now if we have them, I wonder how many other countries like China or Russia have these too. I mean, I guess some would say they
Yeah.
don't, just we do, but I don't know. They seem good at getting our secrets.
Well, that's a question that's up for grabs. The people that I speak to, and I know most of the really uh, well researched individuals with them.
Yeah.
I'm talking about the Richard Dolans of the world,
Oh yeah.
and Steve Bassett, and a lot of the other researchers that I've been dealing with over the number of years. I know them quite well. They're my friends, and we talk a lot. And they're convinced that the United States government pretty much has a handle on this technology. They're not certain of it, once again, but they think that the United States government has, in one way or another, commandeered this technology, and they're producing it themselves. Now, are they sharing this information with their allies? Perhaps. Do they want to share it with with their adversaries like Russia and China? or if Russia and China commandeered it somehow and figured it out on their own. We don't know. The most of what we understand, these TR-3Bs, they're experimented with, originated in the United States, and those are the craft that we're seeing. So the overall answer to the question is, do other countries have this? My answer to that would be no, or they may be at elemental stages of beginning to understand it. But if there's going to be a secret in terms of technology being kept hidden really, really well by the United States, you can bet your bottom dollar that the anti-gravitic technology that the United States has right now is a highly well-guarded secret.
Oh yeah, the one that I seen, I was with somebody else, so I didn't see it alone, and it was off in the distance in the sky, and the person I was with told me about it. So, oh, look at that, and I thought, nah, that's just the power poles. They got lights so the planes don't hit it.
Right.
And
Yeah.
then it started moving, and so there was three orange lights. They were very fluorescent in a triangle shape, and so
Right.
at first all you saw was the 3 points of light.
Right.
And then the craft came into. I mean, this was like, it seemed like I was watching a movie. I tell you, and
Right.
it just appeared, and you couldn't see anything behind it. It was solid black, and then after about 30, 40 seconds, it went back to three lights, and it started traveling. And we followed it for as long as we could, and then it went over the lake and was gone. But
Yeah.
I mean, it was amazing to see, and
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, well, if I could just recount a story that I experienced, it wasn't exactly like you've explained. Although I might say that any of the reports that I have had from people that I've spoken to, and that's probably right now, who have actually seen these things, I've interviewed and spoken with, and these are just ordinary people, probably 8 to 10 people who've had a very similar kind of sighting as you did, and they described virtually, what you've described. The situation that I was involved in, this was back in 1996, when my wife and we had I went on an excursion, a tri-state excursion. We went down to Nevada and to Arizona, New Mexico, and we visited Area 51, just outside of Las Vegas. And we were driving along Highway 375 as we were approaching Area 51. It's a flat desert, dark night, probably about 8:30, quarter to 9. And it's a flat desert, and there's mountains off to the right, the Tikaboo Valley, and then there's these huge mountains on the north. And my wife said, "What the heck is that?" And so we pulled the car over, and we got out, and up in the distance, above the mountains, probably the mountains were, I'm saying, 8 to 10 miles to the north of us. But this light was at about a 45-degree angle, and if you held a dime in your hand and held it out at arm's length, it was about that size, and it was a white light, kind of diaphanous. You could almost see through it, and it was steady. It was just hanging there. And for a second, I thought, where's the moon? But it was far too small to be the moon. And it became diaphanous, as I said. You almost looked like a snowflake almost. And then as that happened, it began to spin. This light began to spin. And while it was spinning, it stopped, and then three orange lights within that white diaphanous circle appeared. And the white dot disappeared, but it just left three orange lights in a perfect triangle. And then these lights hung there for a second. This whole thing lasted probably 90 seconds. And then these three orange lights began to spin really, really fast, and faster and faster and faster. And then they coalesced back into the white dot again, and then just zipped off like in the blink of an eye, just not moved, slowly. It just went at blinding speed. And we stood there and said, "What the hell was that?" We had no idea, and I'd never seen anything like that before in my life. I'd seen a lot of pictures of, UFOs or sighting reports that people would have sent me. Never seen anything like that. Now that's over Area 51 in the Nevada desert. So someone was fooling around with something.
Oh yeah.
So, and that was back in 1996. And that's not that long ago, relatively speaking. So you've got all kinds of experimentations going on, and all kinds of things that people are seeing, and it's tough to really categorize it because they're just so different. Now, very few of them are exactly the same. That's one of the problems too.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's so many different kinds. There's these cigar shapes. There's these, I mean, everything. You look at the Phoenix Lights. I mean, all these
Right.
incidents that have happened. For me, disclosure's already happened, and I didn't need the government to come out and tell me about it. Although I'd like that. I'd like them to
Oh, yeah.
share the
That would be
information.
nice. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it would certainly be nice, but I never held my breath
Yeah.
for it. So, but
Well,
yeah,
yeah, when you say that disclosures already happened, I tend to agree with you in a lot of ways because one of the talking points that I really use a lot is that if you're paying attention to this issue, as you seem to be, and perhaps a lot of your listeners are too, if in fact, people like yourself are paying attention to this issue as closely as you and I are, we get a sense that we know something's going on. We know that it's not just something really, really simple on two fronts. First of all, because it's being hidden from us and kept from us as a lie, basically an embargo on the truth. That's one aspect of it. But intuitively, and even scientifically, there's so much proof that this thing is. We don't need the government to tell us what's going on. We don't need to go to the government cap in hand and say, "Please tell us what's going on." We don't need that. We've got it in our own midst. But this whole idea of the government being quote unquote in charge of this issue, it would be nice for them to come clean and say, "Look, is there more to this than what we believe?" And can we somehow share this information in a way that makes sense for everybody? Or, and here's the big one. I used to make this point all the time on the radio, and I got criticized for it roundly, but that doesn't matter. Um, this thing, whatever it is, this phenomenon, could be so different than what you and I think it is. It could be something completely different than what we've been told it might be, or what it is, or that people know that it could be something that we just cannot imagine. The thought that's never been thought before. It could be that. I'm not saying that it is, okay, but it's the possibility of it being something that we don't expect is real, and I think that's part of the problem with disclosure. What are they disclosing to us, and is it the full story? And if there's more to this, other than what you and I believe intuitively, I want to know about it. And it's my right as a human being to know what's going on. The government doesn't have the right to keep this information from us because this is a question of truth of a cosmic truth that everyone in the human family needs to know about. And it begs the question is why is the secrecy still so strongly in place, despite the fact that all of this stuff seems to be coming forward, with all of the agencies and Director of National Intelligence and the spy balloons and all the stuff that's going on around those issues. We don't need the government to do it, but it certainly would be to everyone's advantage for them to come clean and say, "Listen, here's what things are, and here's where we stand." But are we ever going to get those answers? I don't know.
yeah, especially being that we're the ones who pay for all the research and things they do. It wouldn't be bad if you just
Precisely.
share a little bit with us, more than
Yeah.
just a Tic Tac UFO
Yeah.
video.
Yeah. You are our representatives. We will give you that, but you do not replace us. And
Yeah.
that's the key point here. That's the key point.
I mean, it's like just two biggest questions, I guess, that ever hit us is, are we alone? And, where do we go when we die? And, it seems like at
Hmm.
least one of those questions is badly
Hmm.
being suppressed. The other one, I
Oh,
don't
for
know
sure.
if we're supposed to know in the first place, but
Yeah, a
yeah.
lot of theories about that, but I can't hang my hat on any one of them.
Hey, listen, I got to take a break here, quick,
Okay.
and then we'll be a few minutes. So hang
Okay.
on with me, and then we will come back, and you and I will talk some more, and we'll be off screen while we take this break. Folks, you're listening to The Last Frequency. I'm Mike Vara, and my guest, I told you he was good. He's going to be with us a little bit longer here, folks. Victor Vigiani, and the website. We'll give you all that information when we come back. I do have them linked up over on my website, lastfrequency.com. And we might take some calls here in a little bit. Might. So we'll be back in just a few minutes. Don't go away. And don't forget, we're over on Rumble as well. You can go and you can watch. We're both up on the camera, and we welcome you. Be right back.
Stand by, Carolinas.
Columbia.
Excellent, excellent.
Good off station. Hey, frequencies of all walks of life. Keep up with all things TLF radio by joining our mailing list. Go to the bottom of the homepage and fill in the form. You'll get everything from guest info and show info and other important station-related information. So sign up now.
You're listening to the VARA Network.
Frequencies around the world. Listen up. The shop is here, and you can order TLF radio swag right now and show your friends and neighbors you're awake by wearing one of our many shirts, including our Let's Go Brandon shirt. That one is a hot seller, so get yours while supplies last. We have coffee mugs, clocks, so never miss your favorite shows, books, mouse pads. Just go to thelastfrequency.com and click the shop link. That's thelastfrequency.com and get to shopping.
My friends, we live in a world that's slipping away into constant uncertainty and danger. Imagine if something unthinkable happens tomorrow. Within hours, global supply chains can break down and never start up again. We've learned that lesson the hard way, and that means the smart thing to do is prepare for the worst, even if the peanut butter hasn't hit the fan yet. You should store emergency food to get you through whatever happens next, and we highly recommend My Patriot Supply, America's largest emergency preparedness company. Your shipment will arrive quickly in unmarked boxes to avoid being victim and survive the upcoming uncertainty. Click on the banner over on thelastfrequency.com and get yourself on your way to surviving whatever may come our way. Make sure to listen to Tim Roxbury's Supernatural Realm Tuesday and Thursday nights from 7 p.m. until 9 p.m. Eastern, right here on the VARA Network.
The Ron Edwards American Experience, the talk show that celebrates America and reminds everyone she's worth fighting for. Join me, host Ron Edwards, and also don't miss a daily page from the Edwards Notebook Commentary, right here on
The Last Frequency.
This is The Last Frequency.
You are the resistance.
You're listening to the VARA Network.
Welcome to the night. From the Midlands of South Carolina, you're listening to The Last Frequency with your host, Mike Vara. To call into tonight's show, just dial 803-997-0936. To get questions directly to Mike Vara, you can call in or message Mike from the chat and listen page on our website, www.lastfrequency.com. Now, here is Mike Vara.
We have returned. You're listening to The Last Frequency. I am Mike Vara, and my guest, he is Victor Vigiani, and he is sharing some good information here on the whole UFO disclosure and phenomena. Again, he is Canadian UFO disclosure advocate, and he is with us here tonight. And well, I'm enjoying it myself. I hope you are too. Get over to our website. That is lastfrequency.com. Again, lastfrequency.com. Archives, they're there, all free. Everything's free for you. The video archives, free. Everything is free. I just ask occasionally, you want to release a little bit of the burden on me, then why not hit that donate button, because it does help. And with that being said, I appreciate it. And and I'm looking again to pick up another night here, slowly but surely getting things built back up. So let's get back to it. I guess if we do, I guess we can. If somebody does want to get a question, and there's a couple ways you could do it. Let me tell you, the easiest way right now would probably be the portal from our website at lastfrequency.com. You go to the portal tab, portal page, and you can send a question right through. I'll get it, and I will ask my guest. Now, if you want to call in, you may. The number given by Cal on coming back from the break, not quite correct. It is correct, but it's not up. So we're using another number tonight. That is 803-392-4566. Again, 803-392-4566. So we're back with it here. Victor, we have returned. And so I guess, where do you see this going? I mean, you say you don't expect to see full disclosure, and I honestly don't either. I mean, but at some point, do these guys land? And I mean, they're showing themselves up there. I mean, why bother doing that if you're not gonna?
Well, yeah, the broader question of where this thing is going is a really good one. And if I could take a step back and look at for a second, Mike, for the number of years that I've been involved in this, and the number of years that a lot of the people that I know who are still involved in this, some a little bit longer than me, some a shorter period of time. And when you look at where we started back when I got involved in it in 1975, and the kind of I guess the kind of narratives that were in play back then, 40 some odd years ago, um, it's almost simplistic compared to where we are at right now. The answers are a little bit more clear, but not completely clear. There's a little bit more quote unquote truth to this whole thing. There's a lot more clarity to it, although we're not there yet. But when you compare where we are now to where we were back in when I was doing the radio program in the late 70s and 80s, we are leaps and bounds ahead in terms of people's overall awareness as to what this issue is all about. In my experience, let me start there. My experience has been in the presentations that I do, and I do them on a lot of different levels. I do them locally here in Toronto and Mississauga, where I live, at local libraries and service agencies and clubs and so on. And I'll speak before 15, 20 people or 400 people. And the question always comes up, how's this going on? What's going on? But over the years, I'm noticing that the audiences that I'm speaking to are a whole lot more literate about it. They're a lot more aware of what's going on. The same audience 40 years ago, it would be a category of illiteracy, essentially, compared to where they're at right now. So overall, the general public is becoming a whole lot more aware of this situation. And that's a good thing, and that's due to the good research that a lot of these researchers have done. The Jim Mars of the world, the Richard Dolans, Timothy Goods, and the list is endless as to what some of these people have done to bring the awareness to the general public. So we are way ahead of where we used to be. Now, if you look at where we're at right now, we're still not where we want to be because the level of secrecy and obfuscation that's going on is still unhealthy. It's not a good thing that's going on. And as I alluded to earlier in the program, the government still has a bit of a stranglehold on this information, and that's not a good thing. And I think that the whole idea of human rights comes into this, and we see the aspect of human rights being raised so often with respect to every single issue that the planet is undergoing right now. Is it our human right to have to breathe clean air? Yes, it is. Is it our human right to have good government? Yes, it is. Is it our human right to be respected as individuals, irrespective of our sexuality or our political identification? Yes, it is our human right. And the whole idea, and this is going to be a little bit more deep than I wanted to go into, but if you look at, and I think it's a very key point here, Mike, that if you look at the idea of human rights, okay, rights is a very slippery kind of thing. We tend to think that, well, you've got a constitution. Countries have constitution, and within the constitution, they build in these things called, human rights, and the governments give people their human rights. You can do this, you can do that. You're free to do this. They give us the right to do the things that we think we should be able to do just because it's our right to do it. They give us those rights. That's what we call donative rights. They give us, they donate the rights to us. And the fact of the matter is that if a government has the capability to give us those rights, they also have the capability to take them away. And that's what's happened here. Categorically, our human rights, in a lot of ways, have been taken away from us through the secrecy with respect to this issue. We have the right to this information. Now, the other side of to that rights argument is the idea that we have the natural order of rights, those rights that we have just by the fact that we were born to be a human being. As soon as someone is born into the human family, you automatically have certain rights. No one gives them to you. You've just got them because that's just the way things are. You have the right to breathe air. You have the right to keep your heart beating. You have the right to food. You have the right to all of these things. And this issue, this issue of where we are in the cosmos and whether or not we are alone in the cosmos or together with other species in the cosmos, it is our natural right to know that. And no government can tell us that it isn't our right to know that. And that's the crux of this matter. And it's something I feel very, very strongly about. And that's why the idea of secrecy and the obfuscation and the mismanagement of this whole issue really lies. We have the natural right to know this. And any government that says that we do not have the right should be shot to death immediately or tied to a cow's tail and pissed to death. I'm sorry to say that. But that's that's how strongly I feel about this.
I agree.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah.
It's kind of a gross way to put it, but a lot of people understand that better than rhetorical phrases.
Yeah.
And that's the fact of the matter. We are a human family, and we have that right. Everyone from the highest level of economic income to someone sitting in a canoe off the coast of Madagascar fishing for food. they have a right to know about it. Whether it makes a difference to them or not, that's not the question. But eventually, they have to know that A, we're not alone in the cosmos. And second of all, that whoever's in the cosmos that has the intellectual and technological capability to get here are engaging us in many, many different ways. And then there's the fact that this engagement could lead to, and probably will, when the cards are all on the table, could lead to uh, you know very good things to happen on our planet with respect to our use of energy, to respect to things like um, borders, money, all of these things. They have they'll call everything into question.
Oh,
And we could get into the idea of money and borders, and I think borders on the planet are one of the worst things could ever happen. It separates us. It separates people. Now, do these intellectual, do these off-world civilizations functioning at the highly sophisticated level that they're at? Do they have borders on their planet? Do they segment their planet into sections where you can't go there anymore? Or if you go there, we're going to start a war with you? These are all what I call extinction behaviors, and we are engaged in so many different forms of extinction behavior. You name it. It's from the climate that we're infecting to money and greed and the
yeah.
whole isolationism. These are all extinction behaviors. But if we perpetuate them, Michael, we will in fact become extinct. And maybe that's what they're here for, to either monitor what's going on and watch us extinct ourselves. They could be doing that, or
Yeah.
monitoring it to a point where they say, okay, we've had enough. We're going to, as you said earlier, why don't they just show themselves to us? They may do that one day, because
Well,
I really feel that we are a species worth saving, and I think that's one of the things that they recognize. Now, that's a whole lot to kind of digest over the last 2 or 3 minutes that I just said, but I think it's a very important aspect that we do have a right to know all about this, and that it will, in the long run, benefit us.
right. A couple things here. One, it seems like when you read past scriptures and stuff, that there's indications that they used to show themselves to us and they used to
Hmm.
interact with us.
Hmm.
And then, as far as us being so separated on this planet, I think I don't think it would be such that way if we weren't the truth wasn't so manipulated and people weren't lied to. You've got so many different belief systems around the globe that
Hmm.
it's
Hmm.
like putting dogs in the kennel with cats. They just can't get along, and as long as we're like
Yeah.
that, I can't see us going anywhere in the cosmos.
Well, you've struck a really fine note right there, Michael, because one of the things that we talk about all the time when I talk about this with my fellow researchers, and that's the whole idea of nuclear weapons, as used as
Yeah.
an example, and that's going to lead us into some of the things that are going on right now with respect to the government's investigation into what the UAP are all about. And there are a number of people who are of the firm belief that this stuff called nuclear armaments and the whole nuclear energy, for example, nuclear energy as an energy source and as a weapon. And one of the things that some of the contactees are talking about, and some of the researchers have postulated, is that um, whoever these beings are realize that we have the capacity not only to extinct ourselves, to destroy our planet and make it a wasteland with respect to nuclear war. We all know what will happen if that does occur. We seem to be on the precipice of that right now. In any case, if we as a species are able to um, gain the capacity or develop the capacity to travel the stars. Okay, let's suppose that we do on our own, without any help from anybody else, develop our own mechanisms for traveling, out into the cosmos, far into the cosmos, not just to another planet, but out deeply and take our weapons with us. Okay, these nuclear weapons. Uh, Many people are of the opinion that if we do in fact develop this intergalactic, let's say use that word, intergalactic capacity to travel the stars, and we take our nuclear weapons with us, these highly advanced, highly intelligent civilizations will not permit it. They will quarantine us. They will not allow us to take our weapons of war out into space with us and create the same kind of mess that we're creating on our own planet. So that's one of the things that some of these researchers and some of the contactees who've actually had interactions with these off-world situations, civilizations, that's what they're telling us. That we will not be allowed to take our weapons of war out into space with us. So that in and of itself is sort of a, I guess, a cautionary note that we've got to get our act together. And we've got to figure out a way to eliminate these extinction behaviors that I described earlier, one of them being nuclear weapons, and somehow figure out how to control it or eliminate it to the point where we're no longer a threat to ourselves and we're no longer a threat to the other people in the cosmos by taking our simplistic nuclear weapons out into space and causing all kinds of havoc out in the cosmos.
Oh
So
yeah, yeah, and I think
that's important. I think
I think they've demonstrated that they could shut those babies down at a blink of an eye if they want to.
Well, see, the thing is too. I mean, on that same line of reasoning, Michael, if if we take, for example, the thought process, the thought experiment of saying to ourselves, okay, what if there are other planets out there, and there probably are, other planets that are less sophisticated than us. They're out there. They're operating at a level of existence, that we operated on, maybe 3, 4, 5,000 years ago, and we have an opportunity to engage them if we gain this capacity to move to their planet.
We would try to control them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's the whole thing.
Yeah.
We would take our extinction behaviors with us
Yeah.
and influence them. And so that's one thing. And the other aspect to that is what have these extraterrestrials, these off-world civilizations, what have they done with those civilizations? Have they left them alone? Have they interacted with them? Have they advanced themselves to these people in a less sophisticated or more sophisticated way? Have they disclosed themselves to those less sophisticated civilizations? And then you've got the other level of advancement, other planets out there that are of similar development as we are. Have they interacted with them before? And what's the scenario there? So there's all kinds of nuances to this whole question of what happens when we engage ourselves beyond our own geocentric orbiting of our sun. What do we attempt to take our extinction behaviors with us? What are they going to do about it? I don't think they're going to intervene here. I really don't. I shouldn't say that. They just might. But the war in Ukraine, for example. Okay, that's an absolutely abhorrent situation where one government can infest another government's another country's being with control in the way that the Russians are doing. Absolutely deplorable. They should not be able to. But it happens. Now, do we have to overcome that kind of behavior? What do we have to do to eliminate that, to show whoever these beings are that we are worth saving, that we can get our house in order, if that's in fact what they're looking for? And if they do see that, then the likelihood of them stepping in and saying, "Hello, we're here now. We're glad you're getting better," and now we're gonna make a move to tell you a few things that you might want to know. Are you ready for this, folks? Because if you are ready, it's going to be a big slap in the face for you. Okay, so get ready for it, and it's not going to be pretty. This whole thing called disclosure ain't going to be pretty. Okay.
No, it's not. I mean, look at the religious aspect of things. I mean, there's going to be a lot of people with torches thinking, "Hey, the demons have landed." I mean, you're going to get all kinds of crazy stuff going on.
Oh, it's going to be just it. I don't know any way around that unless whoever these beings are, collectively or individually, unless they have a way of contacting civilizations like us that make it a little bit easier. Maybe they've got a way around, the mass riots that you just described. Maybe there is a way that they have of interjecting their being or their presence to us in a way that won't be threatening. I don't know. They're so highly developed that they just may in fact have a way that won't scare the hell out of us, but will make sense. Now, what that is, I can't even conceive of it. Maybe there is a way. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I mean, people have speculated that they're out to destroy us or eat us and all these different things, and I'm like, it's been going on for so long. Why wait? If they wanted to get rid of this ant hill, they could have done it a long time ago.
Long time ago, for
Yeah.
sure. And that's another thing that really kind of plagues me a lot in terms of what they might be up to. And if they've been here, if they've been engaging us for so long back in biblical times and even before that, or as long as in history as you want to go back, if in fact they have been part of our existence in ways that we don't understand or that really haven't been manifested in the way we think it has been, why not come in and take us over? And why just, there may be species out there that have the capability of doing it and could have done so a long time ago. Because there are a lot of theorists and researchers that say there are a lot of bad guys out there too, and I don't know if that's true or not. But if the bad guys are really out there, and if they're as strong and as powerful and as intellectually advanced as we seem to think they are, they could have had us for breakfast a long time ago.
I think that they're probably, I mean, there's a yin and the yang, right? I mean, there's got to be bad intention ones out there too. Now, that would tell me, though, what's keeping them from doing bad things, and heck, maybe they are, and we don't know it. I mean,
are there competing forces out there that are in fact controlling the scenario that you just described? That there may be negative forces out there that are being balanced off by positive forces. And when you look at things, in a cosmological sense, uh, anything anything is possible. Anything is possible. There's nothing that, like I said earlier, it's a thought that's never been thought before. Things will happen that we could never even possibly imagine, and that could be one of them.
Oh yeah, I'm with you on that. I've said it too. If you could think about it or think it up, I'm sure it can be done. I mean, it's just a kind of weird universe we live in where anything's possible. I'm finding out, and abductions. What about abductions? I've talked to a lot of people who on this show who have claimed to be abducted. Some who I really believe were abducted. Travis Walton being one of them.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and so what's that all about? And the cow mutilations. I'm thinking, how many cows have to be mutilated before they get the information they're looking for? So
that they want. Yeah, that's another story altogether.
Maybe they're eating them. I don't know.
Yeah. Oh, that particular aspect of this whole thing, that particular behavior by whoever's doing it, I think points to a specific species that may be interested in it. So that's just my take on it. But I don't think they're all doing it. I think there may be a species that's interested in that kind of stuff, and there may be species that are interested in other kinds of things that we're doing. So it points to the fact that we are being engaged by a number of off-worlds, and but the idea of the abduction phenomenon. And I'm glad you mentioned Travis because here in Toronto, for I think 3 or 4 years in a row, we had the Alien Cosmic Expo here in Toronto. And Travis was one of our major speakers at two of these events. And I got to know Travis quite well, both here in Toronto, and then I spent a year in Australia where we both spoke at a conference back in 2003. In any case, the whole idea of what he went through and what these contactees have gone through is something that has to be reckoned with, and it's all part of the evolution of how this thing becomes acknowledged. Because right now, the acknowledgement of the UFO phenomenon is one thing, and it's made great strides since since the early 50s. It's made huge strides in people's understanding of it. You can now talk about UFOs in a way that makes sense to people. Oh yeah, that's possible. I saw one too, and yeah, I'm not really that close-minded, but it's possible. Yeah, that kind of discussion goes on all the time, no matter where you go. I go to restaurants, for example, and I sit with friends of mine, and we're having dinner, and there's 8 or 10 of us sitting around a table, and we're all talking about this kind of stuff. So I say to them, okay, we're sitting here having dinner right now. There's 6 or 7, 8 of us right now. We're talking about UFOs. Take a look around you in this restaurant of other maybe 8, 10, 12, 15 tables. How many people at these tables that are sitting around are talking about the stuff that you and I are talking about? Are they talking about what you and I are talking about? The chances are they're not. But if you went up to them, if you got up out of your seat and you went over to them and said, "Can I just ask you a question for a second? Pardon me, put your fork down and leave your spaghetti alone just for a second. Have you ever thought of this idea or this possibility of UFOs or aliens? Have you ever given any thought to that? Oh yeah, sure. Yeah, I believe that. That's quite possible. Ask that same question 50 years ago, you'd have got a different answer. Right now, people are more ready to talk about this issue. So we've come a long way with respect to how this thing has unfolded. And then how has that happened? Well, it's happened in a repetitive sense. We brought it forward. Researchers have written books about it. It's been in the media. It's been, people see it on TV. These all kinds of UFO shows on television. But the one thing that really has not come forward in a way that makes the phenomenon acceptable is the abduction phenomenon. That has still taken a back seat, and maybe it's more difficult for people to internalize that kind of intrusions into our realm as human beings. They're not really willing to accept the fact that it's possible. UFOs, yeah, sure, for sure, no problem.
Yeah.
I think that's people being taken, experimented upon, hybrids, the whole story. No, I can't go there just yet. I think that's definitely a mindset among a lot of people right now. But it's all part of the evolution. One day, the idea of people being taken onto these craft and experimented upon, or at least and given information in a positive way. I think that eventually will make itself known in the same way that the UFO phenomenon was, in fact, a bizarre notion and sort of a taboo. But the abduction phenomenon is going through that right now, and eventually the abduction phenomenon will become a recognized feature of this entire phenomenon. As difficult as it is, I've talked to a lot of abductees. I've
Me
interviewed
too.
them, I've worked with them, I've counseled them, and these people do not want any notoriety. They're not there, uh, you know, trying to wave flagging.
Yeah.
They're not doing that. There are some that attempt to do it, but for the most part, most people are sitting in silence and saying, "No, I'm keeping this to myself, and I'll suffer through it, and whatever happens." That's generally the notion. So,
And when I think about abduction and what the abductees have told me that I've spoke with, some of the descriptions they've given me, it almost sounds like how we would be had we found a planet and we got to it and we're able to hover around it. That's the kind
yep,
of thing I could see us doing. I mean, we do it in the ocean. We'll
sure.
pull an animal up out of the ocean, chip it,
Mm,
and put it back in, and what are they telling their friends down in the ocean? So there's that, and
yeah. Hmm.
some people who have been on these ships, who claim to have been on these ships,
Hmm.
also describe human-like beings amongst grays and other things on
Yeah,
these
oh, for
ships.
sure. Yeah.
Yeah,
Which points I'm glad you brought that up, which points to the fact that I alluded to that earlier in the program, because the number of species that are in fact engaging us are almost countless, I would imagine. Some people say there's up to 57 or 60 different species that we are being engaged by. So we really don't know completely who's responsible, and they all may be responsible for it in a different way. I mean,
yeah,
Travis Walton's experience was totally different than some of the people that I've
yeah.
encountered that have actually given me testimonies to what they've been through. And something very interesting that your listeners should know. In 1996, I was a principal of an elementary school for most of my career, for the last 25 years of my career, and in having exposure to teachers and students and so on and so forth, I had the opportunity to have, because teachers knew that I was involved with this. They knew that I was on the radio program and talking about UFOs and everything. They all knew about it. I didn't stand up in the bandwagon every morning and talk about it. I didn't really do that at all. But they got to know that I was, and they would bring me artwork from kids, um, that that had pictures of UFOs. Okay, that the kids were drawing pictures of alien creatures, and you can say, well, they might have seen it on TV, they might have read about it in a book or talked about it with other kids. Well, yeah, some of them did in fact do that, but some of these kids, some of these kids, in fact, had real experiences. And believe it or not, I got to talk to two of them because they just wanted to share that. Mr. Vigiani, I know that you're invited. Can I just tell you?